actually going to record tonight's meeting. Normally I don't do that, but I'm going to record tonight's meeting. And then Nancy will send out a link when we send the email for everybody that registered. Thank you all so very much for registering and being here. I've got some old news, I've got updates, I've got new news, and I think you're going to find the new news interesting. Um, I'm Andrea Miller. I am the founding board member for Center for Common Ground. So welcome, welcome. And all of you wonderful people work with us on our Reclaim Our Vote campaign. So let me go find my PowerPoint, and we will try to make it relatively short for you tonight. Everybody who's ever been on one of these, you know that I am in Virginia, so we're a Virginia-based 501c3, and we run two main campaigns: Reclaim Our Vote, which every one of you is part of. Yay and thank you. And the mission of Center for Common Ground is to empower underrepresented voters. And tonight I am going to go a little more in depth about the scope of what we are doing and what that really means here. We also run another campaign, Let Me Vote, Count My Vote. Reclaim Our Vote is on the Let Me Vote side. We will be announcing a new webinar that will be coming up in September that will be on the Count My Vote side. We also do election protection. We look at everything from the machines that are used to count the votes, chain of custody when we are dealing with ballots, ballot images, and everything in between. Because our goal is, as we work to get our voters in the door, when they vote, we want to make sure their votes are counted as intended when they cast them. We are also a technology company, so I'm going to be showing you probably just one of our new pieces of technology that will be showing up in phone banks and things. All right, now, I also want to invite you to, most of you are familiar with our summit series, Voting in Troubled Times. So our next installment will be on Thursday, September 24th, 8 to 9 o'clock, the same as these updates. It's just instead of the update, we'll be doing the summit. And it will be, I'm calling it an intimate conversation with me, Gabby, and Rachel Beitkofer, the election strategist who has called so many elections that were totally different from what everyone else was saying. So in 2018, it was Rachel and me who said, we are going to have a fabulous 2018. Well, everybody else was going, oh goodness. And then in 2020, Rachel and me, we are saying we are going to have a fabulous 2020 election. So Rachel herself will be here to give us some insight into what she is looking at and her predictions of where she thinks we are going to possibly be. And that's going to be very, very interesting. So it will be Gabby and me and Rachel. And I will be doing my best to not be a total fangirl. It's going to be ridiculous. Now, we do not currently have the date for our election protection webinar, but this will be an important webinar regardless of what state you are living in, because there is the threat that the conservative side will be attempting to steal votes not only from the obvious states where we are seeing them with suppression, but possibly from other states that we normally don't expect. We need to do a lot of work on the equipment side and processes and procedures. So we're going to do a little workshop. It'll probably be September 10th. I was starting to put the date in, and then I realized people who were doing it hadn't gotten back to me, and I was trying to get a date and I didn't. But I wanted to remind myself to tell you that is coming up. So look for the email and then sign up. Oh, one last thing about this. We are really looking at using the technology that Deepak built for us called Big Stage. Big Stage will allow us to have an unlimited number of people attend this summit. And so we are going to be testing Big Stage for our own use. He says, I'm having all these other people use it, and I really built it for you. So it's like, okay, we're going to come over, and on September 24th, we will be testing Big Stage, because we've got a sneaky suspicion when we really start advertising this, we're going to have more than 1,000 people. All right. Now, you're already familiar with National Vote Force. This is where we are recruiting young people to be poll workers. I had an opportunity to join a call with educators today, and we were talking to teachers about why it's important for young people to become poll workers, not only for the experience of being poll workers and being part of the election infrastructure, but potentially as a way of bringing them inside the election and inspiring them to vote. We do have a poll worker app, so that if you know any young people and you think they might be interested, you can send them the link, pollworker dot whatever it is, pollworker.glideapp.io. And then we have information in all 50 states, or all states that use poll workers, on how you can go and sign up for your state and be a poll worker. We have our app, Vote Force. Vote Force is available in both iPhone and in Android. We don't have that much information on it yet, but there will soon be a lot of information coming on Vote Force. Vote Force is a relational texting tool, so that as we send information out to everyone who has Vote Force, you will then be able to forward that information from your phone directly to anyone in your contact list that you choose. The billboard campaign is going up, and they should be done installing the billboards by tomorrow. We have billboards on
Andrea, you're frozen.
No one else can hear either, right?
There's nothing she can do about it though either.
Yeah.
I can't hear, right.
I'm glad you said that, Carrie, because I thought it was my computer.
Yeah, my internet's been going out, so I thought it was mine.
Mine had gone out right at the beginning of this. I barely got on in time, so I thought it was my computer on the fritz.
You can always try your phone too.
Not mine. I have a flip phone.
I think Andrea left and we'll come back.
She's doing that.
Yeah, she's good at that.
Yep, she's the expert on Zoom.
And soon on,
Excuse me, sorry, I came in late. This is Julie. I was wondering, is the text, was she saying the text technology is not quite ready yet?
No, she was talking about the Vote Force application. It's not quite ready yet. We're not going to be texting till mid-September. And the focus is going to be the people who live in our target states will be asked to be the main people who text. And people who don't live in our target states will be backup. But it won't be for another few weeks.
Thank you for that information. Thank you.
Yeah. And Catherine or Linda could speak to that as well.
I'd love to hear more about the texting because I have people who want to do texting and I was telling them they need to do phone banking. And so I'd love to hear more about
yeah, right.
the texting so I can tell people why they need to do the phone banking.
They need to do the phone banking because the texting is mostly going to be done by volunteers who live in our 8 target states. And only if we run out of those volunteers and still have numbers are we going to use the rest of us as backup. So Andrea's been kind of pushing that on the hope that we're really empowering the communities there so that after the election, they're still going to have the texting tool and they can text about their own local initiatives and issues and even their city council races and so forth. She's really moving more towards support and empowerment of all of our target states. And she said twice in public meetings this week that she doesn't want to have to rebuild all of this in 4 years. She wants these target states that we're going out to be strong on their own.
And Nancy, do you want to, do you want to speak to the fact that phone banking, it's not that scary because we can leave messages, and do you want to tell about her research on the leaving messages and how helpful that was?
Well, if people didn't see this yet, we did find that when we called Georgia voters in June, we called like almost 90,000 voters, and 82% of them went on and voted, whether we left a message or whether we talked to the voter, which is huge and which is also consistent with what we found the last 3 years, 2017, 2018, 2019. 50 to 85% of the voters that we call or leave a message with. And we have a couple of workshops coming up for people who've been postcarding. We'll send those out in the follow-up email. Workshops for, one of them is called Human to Human and it's on Saturday. And the other is phone bank training for introverts and friends, and it's on Tuesday. But it is other people who are on the phone bank team. I know Athena signed on. Other people are here too, but it's an easy thing. Wait, Andrew's calling in. Hold on.
Andrea?
I think Nancy has Andrea on the phone. So just to piggyback on what Nancy was saying, we have an event Saturday at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific called Human to Human, Making Great Phone Bank Calls for Reclaim Our Vote. It's you know, got a lot of different parts to it, but it has to do with helping people who feel nervous or uncertain about making calls, and also how to deal with the just the cultural sensitivity aspect of making our calls into voter suppression states in the South and in other states. Okay, and Nancy, you want to talk about the event on the 2nd?
Yeah, there's another event, and we'll send the links to sign up for both of these events. There's plenty of space. They're not limited, but there's another event called phone banking for introverts and friends, and it was something actually developed by Swing Left San Francisco, and they're willing to do it, and they've kind of changed it around and done it for us, and it's going to be really kind of powerful. There's role playing, and it's really geared. It's been very successful there. People love this training, and it's been geared towards Swing Left San Francisco, but now they're going to do it for nonpartisan. And it's Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific. Andrea's on the phone on speakerphone. Andrea, do you want to just speak and not do your PowerPoint?
Yes, I can certainly do that. That'll be fun. It'll be a new experience for me, yes. My internet is just totally gone. It does not exist. I'll figure out what its issue is a little bit later. Anyway, what I will go through now is I always give you an update on the number of phone calls that we've made so far. We have made 492,917 phone calls. That means we are a little bit less than 8,000 calls away from 500,000 phone calls. And it's still August. So thank you, everybody who has been making phone calls. This week we made, and again, from Thursday until yesterday, we made 22,000 calls into North Carolina. So North Carolina, thanks you. We just put up three very small Georgia phone banks. They're all done. That was 2,500 calls. More Georgia phone banks are coming. And then 3,400 phone calls into Arizona for Pebble. We are working on Florida phone banks. Gabe and I were working on that today. And we are also working on more Arizona Pebble phone banks. So more phone banks are coming. The numbers for postcards were unbelievable. We broke our own weekly record. This week, Brian distributed 529,000 postcard addresses. They were all to Texas, but still 529,000. That brings our total postcard addresses to 4,836,860. So congratulations for all that work on postcards. And now I was going to introduce you to, well, they're there. They can introduce themselves. You can spotlight Laura Hemingway and Laura Hemingway, there's no G, and Catherine Hunt, who will be working on training and recruitment for the texting campaigns. We have 700,000 numbers now, cell numbers for North Carolina. We just finished the map of early vote locations. We're still waiting for about 19 counties. Those will be announced probably around the beginning of September, but all the other counties have already been mapped. And so we are ready to put that into the texting program. We will also have 3 people, Colin, Dahlia, and Josie, working on data and support. Colin, Dahlia, and Josie are the people who load the users into Text%, and they also load the vote centers and polling locations. So that information doesn't just get there all by itself. There are actually people who look it up and then make sure we get it into the tool. So Laura and Catherine, thank you very much. Catherine has been working on Text%. She was the second texter after me. So she's worked on all of our campaigns, and I want to thank the script writing team for the tremendous amount of work that they have actually done in developing one-pagers that are going to be the background and research for answering any questions that voters have in many of our target states. That is going to be so very, very important, especially for the people who are on the reply side of our texting team. Now, even though I'm not on camera, I want to give you a little insight into where we are going. And that is the 2020 election has never been the end point of what we are trying to do here at Center for Common Ground. It has always been a stop along the road. What we have done is we have recruited more than 2,000 local people in North Carolina who want to work with the North Carolina NAACP. I'm working with other organizations that are in various counties in North Carolina. What our ultimate goal is in these initial target states is to establish things that we call democracy centers, meaning in these states that are really struggling right now against voter suppression, we want to establish local groups all around these states where in state they are working and fighting voter suppression. They are advocating for what they need in their community. And then when there is an election, they will have the knowledge, the background, and the tools to do the type of work that we are all doing remotely, helping the state come up to speed. North Carolina and Virginia will probably be the first two states that launch. I'm sure Georgia is going to want to be in, as well as Texas. And when we launch, the tools like X%, which we own, will remain with the activists in those states. So when we look at texting, the very first people who are going to be signed up from now on will be our in-state volunteers. We're going to get them started so that when this election is over and we leave X% with them, they will have the knowledge and they will have the skills to use it for their own purposes, to get people out to events, to lobby, advocate, whatever it is that they believe their community needs. So when we bring on the incredibly experienced and powered texters from Reclaim Our Vote, we want to make certain that our local folks actually get a chance to use the tool. Because when we did Texas, the folks in Texas never really got a chance to use the tool, because by the time we got them ready, there were no text messages left to be sent. So, as I said, this is just a little peek into where we are going. And this will all start literally on the tail end of this election. So on November 3rd, we will be having a major party. It will be party, 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 party. I promise you that. November 6th, we are going to be going back to work in these states. In 2019, so many of you helped Virginia, and I don't believe Virginia is ever going to be the same. I am really hoping, and my board, that we will be able to do the same thing in our 8 target states, that they will become like Virginia, where they will have their own activists, they will have their own tools, they will be prepared to do their own work. And then we can turn our attention to other states that need our help, and these states will begin standing on their own. And we will never have to jumpstart democracy when it's on life support again. As a matter of fact, we will never let democracy get on life support again.
Can I ask you a question that somebody asked about? They had read that Text% got sold. Can you clarify who owns Text%?
Deepak.
And how we fit into it?
Deepak built it for me.
Because he's on your board.
Yes. Yes. Text% will not be sold to anybody.
But it's not
Ours.
right. It's not a Reclaim Our Vote per se. It's a project of Dem Labs, and so they do run it.
And yes, yes, it's a project of Dem Labs, and we put it under Dem Labs so that if he wished to license the product to candidates. Remember, we are a 501c3, so we cannot support candidates or political parties. Dem Labs is a C3, a C4, and an LLC. It sits under Dem Labs LLC. That way, he is free to market that product, and it is a product to campaigns and parties.
So to clarify, because somebody private messaged me, if somebody, a campaign says they acquired Text%, that doesn't mean they purchased the company. It means they purchased sort of called the rights to the.
Right, it means they're using it.
Yeah.
It means they are doing their texting on Text%, just as they might be doing their texting on a Hustle or Spoke. Yes.
Can you speak a little to another question about, someone said, will we be postcarding after the 2020 election?
That would be the Virginia elections.
We will take some time off.
Right, remember, Virginia has an election every year. We love elections in Virginia. No, we don't. We don't really love them. We just, for some bizarre reason, we have not changed our state constitution so that our state elections are in the same year as federal elections. So 2021, the Virginia gubernatorial race.
Are there other questions?
I was planning on having this be a shorter meeting, and apparently other forces were planning on that as well.
I just hope it's not the hurricane headed your way.
I mean, I've had Zoom kind of go out a little bit. I have never had the whole internet just boom down.
Okay, so a couple of questions. Will the slide deck be available? And of course, will the recording be available? And I think both of those you can make available. If you share them with me, I can share them on the Slack.
Yes, and so again, because you were co-host, one of you will need to stop the recording, and when you stop the recording, it will take about 30-45 minutes for the recording to be finished, and then if you log into Zoom and go to recordings, it'll be the first recording there, and there's a share button. That will generate that shareable link that you can then put in Slack, because I am not even certain I am going to be able to bring the internet back on my own. This is feeling like a service call.
Wow, okay. I will try to do that and share it.
Okay, yeah.
Somebody is asking if you can be a poll worker if you're under 18. And I know that that wonderful app you're sharing shows requirements
That
by
varies state by
county.
state. There are some states that allow people as young as 16 to be a paid poll worker working inside the state. So if you use pollworker.glideapp.io, then you will be able to check the rules for all 50 states.
And even
It
each
will give you
county.
the age requirement, whether the person must live. Many of the states, when you look at their rules, say that you must live in the precinct. Most states have released that rule because of COVID-19. Many counties are saying you must be a county resident, and then cities like Richmond are saying, if you live anywhere in the state and you want to work in Richmond, come on. So because of COVID-19, cities and counties are getting a little more flexible in terms of the requirements to be a poll worker. They will all require that you attend training, and then they will all require that basically you work 12 to 15-hour day. And then once you see the election protection information that we give you, people are going to stay, and I think I want to stick around the extra 4 hours to see what they're doing with this count.
Yeah, and are they requiring that you have medical coverage to be a poll worker? Because that's come up as an issue.
Are they requiring that you have what?
Health insurance, in case you do get COVID from working at the polls. That comes out.
You would need to look at each individual county. In Virginia, there is no such requirement.
So it's basically something they have to consider.
Right, and again, remember, we're Virginia, we don't care. That should be our motto. It's like, we're flexible now, whatever.
And there's a question, a private question, is there a workshop for texting? We do have a video for texting and a sign up, and we'll put that in the follow-up email.
And I believe Laura and Catherine will probably put together a video for text. Well, we do have the video that I made. They may even do a little webinar for texting. Text% is very, very, very simple to use. My cat could use Text% to send text. What is complex about any texting program, and especially the way that we do it, is responding to questions from voters.
And I have Linda, I found Linda Hemingway. Do you want to say a little bit, Linda? I just spotlighted you about training for texting.
Say hello to everybody and then go find Catherine. That way Linda and Catherine can meet each other.
Exactly.
Well, it's great to see everybody here and to get to know you. I've been texting for quite a few years now, and I'm just really happy to be involved. Catherine and I will be working on training the local voters in the local states, but also out-of-state voters. We'll just have to play it by ear to see how many people volunteer, but I can certainly understand the wisdom of having local people do the texting, even if we weren't leaving it with them after the election. It's just so nice to have local people who can give directions to a vote center in a way that a local does, who can understand the issues. And for those of you who are maybe in California like I am and just dying to text, if by some chance there's a state you want to work on and you won't be able to do it because there's locals in the area that took care of all the text messages, I'm sure we can find texting work for you with the campaigns of the candidates, with other groups that are targeting. So there's texting to be done, whether it's by the folks on this call or the folks in the states we're targeting. I'm sure you will all feel very proud of yourself by the time we're done.
And Thank you, Linda, and welcome to the texting team. Catherine, are you ready to say hello as your expert texter? Let's spotlight you. Are you on mute? We can't.
I think that's it. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yes. So yeah, I've done a lot of texting and a lot of different platforms, and Text% works very well. And right now we're working with Deepak on the Louisiana census. Kind of concerned for them this evening. You know, I really haven't gotten good enough news coverage to know how things are going there. But we're sending the text right on. And I don't know anybody in Louisiana. If somebody'd like to introduce me, it's been very easy to teach people how to use Text%. So I think that we're going to have a great time with it. And we're going to really enjoy teaching our local folks in the different states how to use it. It's going to be a very welcome tool for them as they continue on.
And that's great too, that there is the short video that Andrea did. And if you and Linda want to put together another video, a longer one, or do a special training, people would love that.
We would love to.
Someone wanted an explanation of who Deepak is, Andrea.
Deepak Puri is a retired Google engineer. He holds 3 patents, and he chairs the IT group for Center for Common Ground. He is one of my board members. He is also a board member of the Tides Foundation, both he and his wife. He's a board member on the C3 side. She's a board member on the C4 side. Deepak is also a member of Democracy Partners in Washington, D.C.
Which is one of the real strengths of the Center for Common Ground, is the access to somebody who can build the technical tools that are needed to really implement some of the vision that Andrea and the board has.
Yes. Yes. He has been wonderful when he realizes I'm having a pain point. Normally, in a couple of days, he will come back and let me know that he has invented something.
We all need a Deepak.
And yes, well, we have a Deepak. This is what's great.
Yes. And one of the other things is there may be some real technical needs or a need for technical solutions in many of our target states, and they do not have access to anyone like Deepak. So it's very, very important to us to be able to learn what the needs really are in communities in these states and be able to say, oh, we can fix that. We can build something that'll take care of that issue for you. We'll be back in a week, and then we're gonna bring you a tool that's really going to help with that. One of the things that I would have shown if my internet hadn't died on me is we got the full list of, we're 19 counties short. We have the list of vote centers in North Carolina, and courtesy of Dahlia, Colin, and Josie, they got all that information loaded, and so Deepak was able to make a map of it. The map that he made is embeddable in websites, and so once he finished the map, I sent it to the North Carolina State Board of Elections so that in the event, they probably won't want to, but if they did want to have a map of all of the vote centers for early voting on their website, they could do it. The other thing about this map is it's an Esri map, and that means it's dynamic. So as we add those last polling locations, once they're approved, they will automatically be added on the map as soon as we type them in.
And Andrea, you'll be happy to know that I just shared my screen if people can see it, and it is the map. You
Yay!
can, except
yes.
I'm messing up. I messed up. You can zoom in and out. I'm not very good at that. But it has little purple dots on where there's polling and voting locations.
Yes, those are the vote centers. Now, in states like Georgia, where there are going to be vote centers and there are going to be drop boxes, we will be showing both. We'll have the vote centers and we'll have the drop boxes. And the same will be true of any of our other states that have vote centers and or drop boxes. And we will also, when we get them, and when the vote centers close, we will then lay in the election day polling centers. Georgia and North Carolina use vote centers only for early voting for election day. Then they go to the old-fashioned regular polling centers. So again, we know things that just confuse the life out of voters. You know, oh, I can vote anywhere in the county. Only during early voting on election day, you've got to go to your polling location. So we will make sure that we get the full list of polling locations. So I'm working on getting that from South Carolina now. I don't think we're going to have any luck at all getting it from Florida. But hey, all they can do is laugh.
And somebody had asked when we're going to stop sending postcards. October 10th is when all the postcards have to be in the mail. Because really, and those will be get out the vote last minute postcards, really we want to allow time for it to arrive well before November 3rd. And we're gonna have rolling campaigns of different states and different, like Andrea said, they all have a slightly different rule. Some allow vote by mail, some call it absentee advance voting with or without an excuse. So each state has a different script, both for phone banks and postcards, that has to be kind of tailored.
Right, and the last address for postcards will be distributed on October 1.
And we do. There's questions about the North Carolina purge voters that Andrea and the North Carolina NAACP met with the North Carolina Board of Elections, and they promised to give a list of purge voters. And the drop dead date is if they don't get it to us by September 1st, we use our list of inactive voters, which is related.
Right, because the purge voters would be taken from the inactive list. So that's normally the way that it goes. Voters go on the inactive list and then they move from inactive to unregistered, otherwise known as purged. You no longer will be able to vote in that state. So I think the hiccup in North Carolina was I made it a point of asking for voters who would be able to re-register. So in other words, I don't want dead people and I don't want people who have just been convicted of felonies and they will not be able to re-register to vote. I only want people who will be eligible to re-register to vote. I think that through them.
And we did, I'm just showing just our little one pager at a glance, which shows, and I could share it, I guess, after the meeting and the email. It shows that for each state, what we're doing with phone banks, postcards, and texting. That one we discussed Tuesday, Andrea.
Yes, excellent. Yes, I love that sheet.
Should we share it in the email?
Yes.
It's helpful. It's not perfect. And the only thing we ask is if you look at it, it's a point in time of what we know about what the campaigns are, where and when, and it does change, but at least it gives you some idea of the plan. Changes every few days.
Nancy, there's a question came to me privately about whether people should still send their postcards to Texas. And, Yes, but the Texas dates we had before were September 1st to 5th, and they've been extended to September 20th because the early voting locations won't be available till mid-October. So if people have those particular kind of postcards, they're Texas active voters with an early voting message, those can go out between the 1st and September 20th, but closer to the 20th is probably better.
And the hurricane will be long past by then. We aren't mailing those cards right now anyway.
Right, right. And hopefully there won't be another one coming up. So yes.
Right.
I mean, it is hurricane season until almost Thanksgiving.
Yeah, there could be more. And we should say, Carrie, you might want to share about we're not going to recruit any more new postcarders as of September 1st.
Right.
I mean, we're sending out more than 500,000 a week. People who already know how to get their addresses, know how to get their postcards.
Right.
They can keep writing until October 10th. But the 250 people that sign up every day, we're not going to invite them to postcard after September 1st.
Right,
We just won't tell them about it.
It will be phone banking, and I've got a group that has phone bankers that will be heading your way. So I'll wait till I hear from them again, but I really expect to. So they've got about 25 phone bankers.
Which is great. And Lisa posted in the chat that our current phone banks are Texas, North Carolina, Arizona, and Alabama. And Andrea had said very soon we're going to open up new in Georgia and Florida.
Yes, yes. I got an opportunity. Gabe and I are working on Florida. And so once we get Florida going, then there will be the early vote campaign, the early vote and register phone banks. We will be getting ready to open them up for North Carolina, especially now that we know where the vote center locations are for early vote. We can begin the phone bank campaign, letting the unregistered voters know you can register and early vote same day. We'll probably wait a couple of weeks to begin that, and we'll start that in mid-September. But I'll see how many phone numbers we actually have for that.
Andrea, can you respond to the question people always have now about, are you encouraging early voting or vote by mail?
In North Carolina, we are definitely encouraging early voting. In North Carolina, vote by mail does require a witness. There are very, very strict laws about who may drop a ballot off. If you do not mail your ballot and you wish to drop your ballot off at early voting, there will not be a box in early voting. You must go in, request a very specific official, and then you must sign to drop your ballot off. It is very complex. It is very convoluted. There are numerous things that the voter could miss and do wrong and end up with ballots that are not counted. So we are really, really, really going to be encouraging people in North Carolina to early vote. In Texas, we basically have no choice because they still are only allowing people with disabilities, 65 and over, or will be out of the state for all of early voting and election day. So Texas, there is no choice. It is early voting.
We're going to get pizza. Okay.
In Georgia, I think we've often said vote by mail or drop it in a drop
Georgia's
box.
interesting. In Georgia, if people order a vote by mail ballot, as we saw in the primary, there is a real question of will they actually get it? But we have a number of fallback positions in Georgia where if you don't get your ballot, then you can go and early vote. Now, we've got some interesting news from Alabama. Alabama is allowing COVID-19 as an excuse to absentee vote in person. So it's not early voting the way we think of early voting, but it's close enough, and it will give us multiple days of voting, and it will keep people out of the long lines on election day. So I just confirmed that with Cliff the other day about Alabama.
All right.
And this is why it takes us so long to write scripts.
Right.
Because it's changing. And we don't want to add to voter confusion. We don't want to tell voters, oh, this is how it works. And no, it doesn't work that way. One of the problems that occurred in Virginia was in Virginia, 2.3 million vote by mail ballot applications arrived in Virginia. And those vote by mail applications for our largest county, Fairfax County and Fairfax City, they're both Fairfax, they mixed up the envelopes. In Fairfax County, they gave them the envelopes for the Fairfax City registrar. And they did the same thing for 4 counties where the city and counties have the same name. The most egregious is Richmond City and Richmond County, which are 2.5 hours away from each other. Yes. So again, we must be exceedingly careful with the information we send to voters. We do not want to give voters wrong information. So if we have to wait to ensure that we know, well, is it this or is it that, we will wait until we know for sure that what we are telling voters is correct.
And thank you. And somebody asked privately about the Alabama COVID-19 excuse. It's not if you have COVID, it's if you're concerned about it.
Yes, 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 yes. It's if you are concerned about voting on election day because you are concerned about COVID-19 and potentially being around other people who may or may not have it, then they are allowing that as an excuse to absentee in-person vote, because Alabama, like Texas, requires an excuse.
And I wanted to share something too. Somebody did a private question about, do you have to turn away volunteers that come to you if you're a team lead for postcarding and they come after September 1st? You don't need to turn people away. We're just not going to advertise it. If you have a new volunteer and you can support that person with postcards and addresses, for sure, get them involved. They can keep writing till October 10th. But we just can't take on brand new people who don't already have a built-in support system and try to get them involved.
Right, like entire congregations or, you know.
Right, if a new congregation says, well, we're gonna meet September 15th and we wanna have a postcard party, we're gonna say, no, have a phone bank party instead.
Right.
By the way,
and we just had to do that, right?
I wanted to throw in something about people who are postcarding the Texas active voters early voting postcards. Oh my gosh, I'm spotlighted. Just underline early vote. I've been telling this, I'm doing the postcard review emails, and I'm telling this to person after person that that's the takeaway is early voting. So let's highlight and underline early voting or vote early on the cards. Thanks.
Yeah, because the more people we can keep away from actual election day voting, where we know the lines will be long. LeBron James and the astronauts and the athletes, shows what I know about sports, and the athletes are pushing some of these cities to use their stadiums for voting in certain areas because of the size.
Right, you can spread out more.
Right.
There's also a question in chat that you can't see. Do you need to have verification or proof of your claim about fear of COVID in Alabama? And the answer is no. You just
No.
mark on a box, I'm worried.
Right.
It's
Yeah. Alabama's handling it exactly the way Virginia handled it. There is a list of excuses, and then they will say, if you have a concern about COVID, check box 2A.
Yeah, and the question, a private question about, are we going to wait for the Texas Fifth Court to decide on whether the fear of COVID will allow voters to vote absentee? What if they decide the week before November 3rd? If they change, we can change our phone banks, but we're not going to wait to do our postcarding for some court decision.
Right, and the odds of Texas changing are very low.
The odds of winning in court, since we've lost several times already.
Exactly, right. To expect another court to say yes, and even if they do, they're even when the it was, according to the courts, you could use COVID-19 as an excuse. The registrars, most, were not willing to accept that, and they were still asking people, what is your birth date, when you would call.
And in Texas, as in every state, there's a deadline for requesting an absentee ballot. So yes. I think it's probably October 24th or something. So we're going to run out of time before the courts rule.
Right, and then the other issue is we always have to remember, now the one thing about ballots and mail is that it is very localized for most people. Now, people that are out of state that are voting absentee, they better request those ballots very, 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 very quickly. The local mail will potentially be impacted because of the no overtime and all that other stuff that may or may not change when we get closer to the election. But with everything so up in the air, the really critical thing is vote as early as you can. If you are going to vote by mail, order that ballot the moment that you can do it. So get that application in. So don't wait.
Carrie, did you have something?
Actually, I'm answering privately, but there was a question about where do we get our addresses from Florida, because someone's son received one and they were happy, but they were an active voter. But I was just answering that particular list was for active voters. So, you know, we have different campaigns. Some are for unregistered or deregistered voters, and some are for active voters. And each script is targeted to that particular group of voters. And I'm not sure if that answers your question or not. It's Lorraine.
But in general, we always get our data from the State Board of Elections, and that's why it's never perfect, because it could be out of date. The counties.
Well, yes. Now, our information, we use NGP Van, the same as all progressive groups. We all use the same system. We use NGP Van. NGP Van harvests their data from state voter files. What we are finding is that the state voter files are not always totally updated by their counties, that the county voter files are better. But the vendor's position is they're going to get their information. There's 50 states. They are not going to go hunting through 2,000 counties to get information. So our information comes from NGP Van, same as all other progressive groups. The deregistered voters, that information is always a little weaker than the active voters. It's a lot weaker on phone numbers, but only a little weaker in terms of addresses.
Addresses are more accurate over time.
Right. Voters may change their phone numbers. And again, often the phone number that the Board of Elections has is the phone number that the voter gave when they originally registered to vote. Most people, when they get a new phone, don't immediately go, oh, let me give the Board of Elections my new phone number. They just don't do that.
And people are asking about, to clarify the timeline for many people are now sending Texas cards. And we had said originally mail them between September 1st and 5th. Carrie covered this earlier. We changed it to be mailed between September 1st and 20th.
And we're fine with that, right? Yes, the election's in November and early voting in Texas begins in the middle of October.
October 13th. So even if we mail a card September 20th and they get it October 10th, they can still look up their early voting location and go on the 13th.
Right, and early voting in Texas runs October 13th. They expanded it. Don't they run until October 28th or 30th?
Yes, they started a week early and they run till October 30th.
Yes. Yep. So yeah, we still have time. And see, a number of people are still trying to do the vote by mail. If they're doing vote by mail, then they really do need to mail now because people have to get it. They have to request their ballot, then they have to get their ballot and they have to mail it back. We are asking people to early vote. We have a totally different time schedule.
And I apologize, I just muted everyone because someone was typing, but you can unmute yourself if you do want to speak. Although we should close this meeting out, especially because Andrea doesn't even have internet and it's her meeting.
Internet. Yeah, that's like, wow.
I'm going to stop recording.